A 9-year-old whispered, "Grandma, please don't go back home," confirming the worst fear of my life. My daughter-in-law, Trista, wasn't just interfering with my marriage. She was sedating her own child and hiring a hitman to murder me for a $50,000 financial payoff. Before continuing, write where you are from or what time it is. "Grandma, please don't go back home." The whisper was soft, barely audible over the synthetic laughter of the cartoon playing on the television, but it slammed into me like a car crash. I looked down at my 9-year-old granddaughter, Mia. Her small hand was locked around my wrist with a surprising, desperate strength. "I am Kate Williams. For 35 years, I was a social worker with Child Protective Services. I've interviewed children in hospital beds, in cramped police rooms, and in sterile court offices. I know the exact tremor of a child telling the truth about danger." That tremor was running through Mia's grip right now. My daughter-in-law, Trista, had just left. A theatrical hug, a flashing, fake smile, and the announcement that she was off for a 5-day West Coast Regional Summit. She thought she had set the perfect trap. "I heard Mom planning something against us," Mia repeated, her large brown eyes wide and pleading. I didn't ask what she heard. I didn't question her. I believed her. Every single time a child reports danger, you believe them. That instinct saved my life, and Mia's. "I believe you," I said, my voice low and steady. My heart hammered against my ribs, but the CPS training kicked in, demanding calm. "Tell me everything, but only once we're safe. We're leaving right now." It took 10 minutes. 10 minutes to throw my bag back into the car, 10 minutes to help Mia silently pack her favorite stuffed rabbit and a few pairs of pajamas into her backpack. I moved like a ghost through the beautiful, expensive house my son Malcolm had worked so hard for. Every perfect vase and polished floor now felt like a stage prop in a very grim play. Mia and I crept past Malcolm's home office. I could hear his muffled voice on a conference call, completely oblivious. A terrible coldness washed over me. The realization that Trista had isolated him so completely, he wouldn't even notice the air shift if we vanished. The creak of the third step on the staircase almost made me gasp, but Mia, bless her heart, had already bypassed it. We slipped out the front door and into my 10-year-old sedan, parked deliberately out of the driveway. I started the engine, the low growl sounding thunderous in the quiet neighborhood. Only after 2 long blocks did I dare turn on the headlights. "Where are we going, Grandma?" Mia's voice was shaky, echoing the road noise. "Aunt Ellie's," I told her. Ellie Johnson, my best friend for 30 years, lived 2 hours away. It was far enough, safe enough, for a first stop. The fear was a physical pressure in my chest. I kept glancing at the rearview mirror, checking for headlights that weren't there. Trista was supposedly on a plane to the West Coast, giving her a perfect airtight alibi. But I remembered the coffee she'd given me 3 weeks ago, the dizzying disorientation, the confusion I dismissed as fatigue. Mia was asleep by the time we hit the freeway, utterly drained. But I couldn't rest. I thought about the vitamins Trista gave Mia every day. Mia had described them as pink pills that make my tummy feel funny and my head feel fuzzy. Drug-tired, I knew the look from 1,000 case files. Trista wasn't just controlling her. She was sedating her. We arrived at Ellie's house at 1 a.m. Ellie, in her flannel bathrobe, didn't ask questions. She saw the look on my face, the look of a woman who had just stared down a predator, and simply ushered us in. "Guest room is ready, Kate," she said. After Mia was safely tucked in, I sat with Ellie in the kitchen, detailing the isolation, the drugging, the suspicious phone call I'd overheard earlier that night. "Tomorrow night. Make sure it looks random." "I told you," Ellie said, her voice quiet and hard. 7 years ago, I told you that girl had dead eyes." "I know." I whispered, shame burning in my throat. I let her convince me I was paranoid. Who did she talk to? Ellie demanded, cutting straight to the core. Someone named Dennis Call. She said it had to look like an accident. I pulled out my phone and dialed Detective Hayes's number. Lisa Hayes had been my partner in crisis on dozens of CPS cases. She answered groggy, but the moment I spoke my name and the word murder, her voice sharpened to steel. We ran, Lisa. My daughter-in-law is planning to have me killed. Mia overheard her discussing it. Smart, the detective said instantly. Don't go back. Don't call Malcolm yet. I'm taking this seriously because I trust your judgment. If you think you're in danger, you are. Bring Mia to the station tomorrow at 9 US a.m. I didn't sleep. My mind ran through 35 years of CPS training, searching for precedents. This wasn't just hostility. This was premeditated. At 6 a.m., Malcolm started calling. I let the phone ring, watching his desperate calls turn into frantic, accusatory texts. You kidnapped my daughter. Call me back. I sent him one text back. Mia is safe with me. I will explain everything soon. Trust me. His reply was immediate, capital letters screaming in the quiet room. Trust you? Where are you? I shut off the phone. I needed evidence before I dealt with Malcolm's blinding fury. Mia, Ellie, and I arrived at the city police station right on time. Mia, clinging to her stuffed rabbit, told her story to Detective Hayes in a child-friendly interview room. The room was warm, but Mia's words were ice. She said, once she's gone, Mia won't have anyone to run to. She always calls Grandma the old lady when Daddy isn't home. Mia then dropped the final, crushing piece of evidence that made Detective Hayes's pen stop moving. One time, I saw Mommy put something in Grandma's coffee cup when Grandma wasn't looking. Mia whispered. It was white powder from a little bag. She said it was sugar, but Grandma doesn't put sugar in her coffee. I leaned back, my breath catching in my throat. The dizzy spell, the disorientation. Trista hadn't been testing me. She had been practicing. The white powder in the coffee was the rehearsal. The detective looked at me, her face grim. Catherine, Mia's disclosure is credible. Everything she's saying fits the pattern of high-risk familial abuse and planning. But we have a serious legal problem. Malcolm filed a missing persons report. And in that report, Trista has already begun building a narrative that you are mentally unstable. I nodded, watching her gather the recording equipment. She's good at planting doubts, Lisa. She isolated Malcolm for years. I'm opening a formal investigation, but I need time to gather evidence before we confront her. I need to find Dennis Call. And Catherine. Detective Hayes paused, her eyes locked on mine. I'm looking into 3 names connected to Trista's past, and one of them is yours. The detective's voice sharpened. I'm looking into 3 names, Kate, and one of them is yours. The air went thin. I had spent my life investigating cases, never being one. What does that mean, Lisa? My name? Trista has used 3 different aliases in 3 different states over the last 15 years. Detective Hayes explained, her tone purely professional, stripping away any personal comfort. Tisha Bennett, Letitia Barnett, and Tisha Barnett Williams. In one of those states, in a background check Trista conducted on herself, we found a reference to a document that seems to be a sealed juvenile record, and a heavily redacted statement from a social worker named Catherine. My mind raced. That's impossible. I never worked in those states. Exactly. But the document suggests you were the one who conducted the child abuse investigation into her when she was a teen. That she was in foster care, multiple placements. She's built a fiction where you are her childhood trauma. The level of her planning was chilling. Trista wasn't just reacting to my interference. She saw me as the original villain in her life story. She was framing the murder as vengeance, not greed. Mia was still with Ellie, coloring in the waiting area, safe but shaken. I had to focus. What about the social pressure? The narrative she's selling Malcolm? Malcolm is currently hysterical. Trista contacted him from her summit after he filed the report, telling him you have been acting paranoid and getting erratic with Mia. She's planted the seed. This is classic isolation strategy, Kate. She tries to isolate you socially and financially before the final move. My face burned. She was attacking my reputation, the one thing I'd spent 35 years building. We have to talk to Dr. Mills, I stated, shifting gears. Mia's pediatrician. Trista switched doctors when he questioned her about Mia's lethargy 6 months ago. Detective Hayes nodded. Dr. Mitchell is already being contacted by a uniform officer. I want medical confirmation of the drugging pattern. We worked through the day, hitting the legal microcapsules one after the other. I signed the affidavit detailing the drugged coffee and Mia's disclosure. The motion to protect Mia's welfare against Malcolm's missing person filing landed on a judge's desk. Each signature felt like a physical risk, but the price was worth the gain. Later that afternoon, the report from Dr. James Mills came back, a devastating confirmation. He had documented concerns 6 months prior that Mia was oversedated and exhibiting signs of nonspecific lethargy at 2 separate appointments. Trista had dismissed his concerns as overreacting and promptly switched practices. It gets worse, Detective Hayes said, pushing a printed page toward me. It was a screenshot from a local neighborhood message board posted just hours after we fled. Subject: Need help? Kidnapping risk. User: Tisha B198. My mother-in-law, a retired CPS worker, just took my daughter, Mia 9, without notice. She's been acting erratic, paranoid, and making accusations. I worry she's having a mental break, and Mia is in danger. If you see Kate Williams's old Honda Civic, call the police immediately. My stomach clenched. She's not just hiding a past, I muttered. She's building an alibi, piece by calculated piece. She's trying to poison the well, Kate. Social stakes are now engaged. We need to move faster on the financial side. A murder plot for greed is an easier case to prove than a family vendetta. My will, I said, remembering the little comment Tisha had made months ago about my modest savings. I need to check my legal documents. She was forging signatures according to the recordings. I spent the next 2 hours on the phone with my estate lawyer, Mr. Evans, forcing him to pull my most recent documents. The anxiety was a cold weight in my hands. The money wasn't much, mostly a modest retirement fund in my small house. But it was everything to me, and it was the primary motivation for every predator like Trista. Kate. Mr. Evans's voice was tight over the phone. I show a new will execution date 6 months ago, witnessed and notarized. It leaves everything to Marcus, with Trista named as the executor. I never signed a new will, I stated, my jaw locked. Did you verify the notary? The notary seal is registered in the next county over. I'll send the officer to check it now, but the signature, it's extremely close to yours. It would stand up in probate. My heart pounded with furious intensity. 6 months ago, right when I'd noticed Mia's shift in behavior and when Trista started switching doctors. She wasn't just planning my death, she was ensuring she got the clean financial payoff she craved. The financial stakes had just skyrocketed. Trista was not just a murderer, she was a thief of legacy. The new will execution, fake but legally sound, was the first concrete evidence of her financial planning. Find Dennis Call, Lisa, I urged the detective. He's the only way we break the alibi. If she paid him, there's a paper trail. Detective Hayes looked up from her computer, where she was cross-referencing names against Trista's aliases and phone records. I found him. Dennis Call, age 41. Criminal history, assault, fraud, and a conspiracy charge that was dropped. The man is a professional scam artist, Kate, not a killer, but he's been in frequent contact with Trista. The calls spiked exactly when you were due to visit Malcolm and Mia. He's the hired gun, I confirmed. The one she was going to pay to make it look like an accident. Detective Hayes gave a curt nod. He's been located. We're bringing him in tomorrow morning. But Kate, the plan we're seeing is complex. She's framing you, forging documents, and hiring muscle. This woman is meticulous. The question is no longer who this man Dennis Call is, but why Trista had decided to pay him exactly $50,000. The question was no longer who this man Dennis Call was, but why Trista had decided to pay him exactly $50,000. That figure, $50,000, was an absurd, ugly price to put on my life. It was a clear motive. The new fraudulent will, leaving my entire modest estate to Malcolm, with Trista as the controlling executor, proved her avarice. She was cleaning up her financial loose ends. I woke up the next morning, October 20th, in Ellie's quiet guest room. The silence was unnerving. I was used to the early morning bustle of a busy family house or the professional hum of the CPS office. Now there was just quiet dread. Mia woke up confused but safe. "Is Daddy okay?" she asked, clutching her rabbit. "Daddy is worried, but he knows you are safe, baby," I reassured her. The lie tasted like ash. I wanted to tell Malcolm everything, but Detective Hayes' order was absolute. Do not engage him until we have the evidence. Mia's question was quickly followed by a text from Malcolm. It wasn't hysterical this time. It was cold, echoing Trista's legal maneuvering. "Mom, I spoke to an attorney. If you do not return Mia by 6:01 p.m. tonight, I have to assume you are medically unstable. They advised I file for emergency temporary custody. Don't force my hand. Bring her home." Trista was using the legal system like a weapon. By making me choose between Mia's legal safety and her physical safety, she forced me into the open. The stakes had just been raised from private to legal. I rushed back to the station. Detective Hayes was already in her office, pacing. "We have him," she announced. "Dennis Call is here, with his attorney. He came in cocky, smelling of cheap cologne and cheaper entitlement. He's going to talk, but we need to play this smart. Hit him with the drugging evidence," I urged. "Show him Trista was willing to drug her own daughter to create an alibi. That tells him he can't trust her, and that if she'd throw Mia under the bus, she'd certainly throw him." Detective Hayes smiled thinly. "Already on it, Kate. The conspiracy charge against him was week before. This one is first degree. He'll fold." I waited in the conference room. My nerves were frayed, my skin prickling. I remembered all the red flags I'd ignored over the years, the way Trista marginalized my time with Malcolm, the constant, subtle judgment of my house, my life, my neighborhood. It wasn't boundary setting, it was tactical isolation. An hour later, Detective Hayes returned, shutting the door behind her. Her eyes were triumphant, but her mouth was grim. He cracked. "Call is a scammer, not a killer. He was terrified when we showed him the doctor's report and Mia's testimony about the pink pills. He knew the child abuse angle made the whole plot toxic. He folded faster than cheap lawn furniture." "What did he say?" I leaned forward, my hands clenched on the table edge. "He confirmed everything Mia heard. Trista offered him the $50,000 to stage a home invasion, make it look like a robbery gone wrong, and ensure you were gone permanently while she was out of state. He gave her multiple options for dates, but she insisted on the night after she left for the summit." I felt the bottom drop out of my stomach. The plot was real. The white powder in my coffee was real. My flight had saved us from certain death. "But he denied agreeing to the final plan," the detective continued. "He said he was stalling. trying to find a way to bleed her dry without committing murder. He claims he was recording their conversations to protect himself. I gasped. Recordings? Yes. 3 separate conversations. He said, when someone talks about killing people, you record that. He just pulled out his phone and played them for us right there in the interrogation room. The world narrowed to a target. Those recordings. They were the smoking gun. They were the key to Malcolm's freedom and Trista's prison cell. I need to hear them, I said, my voice barely a rasp. I need to hear her voice planning my murder. Detective Hayes looked regretful. He gave us the phone, but the lawyer has tied it up in evidence processing for 36 hours. We can't play them until the chain of custody is secured. 36 hours. Trista would be back in 3 days. Malcolm was already threatening legal action. The clock was ticking, a micro clock forcing our hand. What else did he give you? Text messages. Trista was planning to claim certain family valuables were stolen during the robbery. She'd recently increased their homeowner's insurance by 40%. Greed and control. The 2 motivators of every predator I had ever encountered. And Kate. Detective Hayes took a deep breath. Carl also gave us this. It's a printout from Trista's burner phone activity. She ran a background search on 3 elderly victims who died mysteriously. She's done this before. A new image punch hit me. A list of names, locations, and dates of death printed on cheap, faded paper. The dead eyes of my daughter-in-law, now a serial killer on paper. Dorothy Crawford, Midwest State, 13 years ago, died in a fall down the stairs. Trista was her home health aide, inherited $30,000. Robert Chen, East Coast State, 9 years ago. His mother died in a car accident, brake failure. Trista was engaged to him, beneficiary of a $50,000 life insurance policy. She targets men with mothers, eliminates the mother, and gains control of the son and the assets. I finished, the CPS assessment overriding the personal shock. She's a black widow. The scope of the case had escalated from family conspiracy to interstate serial homicide investigation. The stakes were now public. My survival was just the tip of the iceberg. We have enough to arrest her, Kate, Detective Hayes confirmed. But Cale's recording is crucial. We need time for the evidence team to clean it and confirm it's admissible. Until then, you and Mia stay hidden. I'll deal with Malcolm's custody threat. I nodded, watching the phone that held the recording sitting across the room in an evidence bag. The line clicked dead, and the world narrowed to a target. I needed those recordings more than I needed air. The line clicked dead, and the world narrowed to a target. I needed those recordings more than I needed air. I couldn't stand the suspense. Every passing minute felt like a betrayal of Mia and Malcolm. I knew how Trista operated, relentless, manipulative, and always 3 steps ahead. The 36 hours before we could access the recordings was a chasm wide enough for her to plant doubt, destroy evidence, or flee the country. I took the risk. I asked Detective Hayes to use my CPS contacts to discreetly run Trista's personal banking history, not the joint accounts, but any solo accounts she held. If she was a serial predator, she would have a separate financial fortress. You're retired, Kate, Detective Hayes warned. You use those contacts, you risk exposure. Trista will see it. She already thinks I'm paranoid, I countered, the fire of righteous anger now burning away the fear. Let her. I need to know where the $50,000 for Dennis Call was coming from. That will give us the motive's depth. I made 3 calls, quick and concise, using the currency of mutual favors I'd accumulated over 35 years of working late nights on difficult cases. By the time I hung up, the information was flowing. While we waited, Detective Hayes and I talked through the past victims. Dorothy Crawford, Robert Chen's mother, The pattern was horrifyingly clear. Trista was a collector of dead mothers and subsequent inheritances. She collected men who were grieving or vulnerable, then eliminated the interference. Malcolm, grieving the loss of his father, Bernard 3 years before, had been the perfect mark. A new thought, sharp and terrifying, hit me. Malcolm, is he safe? If Trista is already planning a new life with my money, what happens to Malcolm once she's done with me? Is he just a way to access the assets? Detective Hayes's face tightened. That's what we need the recordings to confirm, Kate. Was the plan to kill you, control Malcolm, and then possibly eliminate him later when he became inconvenient? It's classic financial predator behavior. My hand flew to my mouth. My son. The oblivious, kind man who had been so manipulated, he thought his wife was a good person. The betrayal went deeper than I thought. Trista's control was the goal, and my death was just the catalyst. The first piece of new intelligence came back late that afternoon. A retired forensic accountant friend confirmed a bizarre pattern in Trista's separate account. Over the last 6 months, Trista had been draining funds from her personal savings, transferring the money in small, untraceable chunks into an offshore account. The total transferred was $1,200. Where did she get this money? I demanded. Her salary is good, but not that good. Malcolm, Detective Hayes stated, showing me a list of incoming deposits into Trista's personal account. He's been regularly transferring money to her, labeled as business expenses or travel fund, exactly the kind of thing a busy, trusting husband would do. Malcolm had been funding his wife's escape fund while she planned my murder. The depth of the manipulation was bottomless. Finally, the recordings were ready. Detective Hayes led me into a secure room. The lights were low, the equipment sterile. The air felt heavy, like a shroud. "This is the third recording," she said, her voice soft. "The one from last Thursday, the day you arrived." The speaker crackled, and then Trista's voice. Clear, cold, and calculated. "Everything's in place. She's there now. I'm leaving tonight. Tomorrow night you make your move. She'll be alone with Mia after Malcolm goes to bed. Do it then. Make sure there are no witnesses." My breath hitched. My hands were clammy. This was the voice of the predator who had embraced me with a tight, performative hug that felt like a snake constricting around prey. Then Call's voice. "What about the kid? Mia won't remember anything if we drug her enough." And Trista's reply, without a hint of hesitation or emotion, "I've been preparing her. Just get in. Get it done. Get out." I saw Mia's face in my mind, remembering the pink pills. Trista hadn't just been drugging Mia. She had been conditioning her system to heavy sedation, ensuring she was a compliant, silent witness to my murder. The rage was a physical wave, pushing the terror aside. I had to fight, not just for my life, but for the soul of my son and the future of my granddaughter. Detective Hayes leaned in, her voice now a low growl. "Listen to the last 20 seconds of this recording, Kate. This is the new information." Trista's voice, lower now, almost a hiss. "Make sure you take the ring box from the safe. Malcolm will panic, which will make him look disorganized. If we have to blame him later, it helps that he looks unreliable. We just need to pin the theft on him first." I froze. Malcolm. The original plan wasn't just to kill me. It was to subtly implicate Malcolm, making him look financially unstable and morally unreliable in the inevitable probate and custody battle over Mia. "She was setting him up too," I whispered. "She was planning to destroy him, not just control him." The revelation was a double price. She was a murderer and a blackmailer of her own husband. Detective Hayes nodded gravely. "We have everything: conspiracy, forgery, child abuse. The serial killer angle is what we need to use to pressure Malcolm now. Before Trista gets back, she lands tomorrow morning. We need to flip Malcolm and set the sting operation. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the realization of how close we had come. Malcolm was the ultimate victim of her manipulation. I needed to save him from his own wife. The detective looked at me, her eyes dark, and said, "We need to talk about Malcolm's fate after she gets arrested." The detective looked at me, her eyes dark, and said, "We need to talk about Malcolm's fate after she gets arrested." Malcolm was flying home to an emotional ambush. He was about to learn that the woman he loved, the mother of his child, was a cold-blooded killer who had drugged their daughter and planned to frame him after murdering his mother. "He needs to hear the recording first," I insisted. "No matter how much evidence you show him, he'll find a way to deny it until he hears her voice, cold and planning." Detective Hayes agreed. She had the difficult task of bringing him into the station without giving away the full horror. She told Malcolm she had new information regarding the kidnapping and needed him there immediately. I waited in a separate room. The minutes stretched out like taut wires. I kept thinking about the look in Trista's eyes when she'd hugged me goodbye, that satisfied, predatory look. She thought she was already a widow with a clear path to my money. Then I heard the sound of the door opening and Malcolm's voice, loud, frantic, then abruptly silenced. I knew he was in Detective Hayes' office now. I could only imagine the shock, denial, and horror washing over him. The woman I had raised, now 40 years old, was facing the absolute destruction of his reality. I listened to the muffled, agonizing sounds coming from the next room. There was the detective's steady, even tone, then a sharp, broken sound, Malcolm's cry of denial. "No, this is insane. Trista wouldn't." Then, the cold, clinical sound of the recording being played. Trista's voice, clear as a bell. "Once she's gone, we're free. Malcolm won't question anything. He trusts me completely." And the second clip, the one that broke my heart. "If we have to blame him later, it helps that he looks unreliable. We just need to pin the theft on him first." A moment of utter silence. Then Malcolm's voice, a raw, strangled scream of agony. "That's her. Oh, God. That's her. I didn't know, Mom. I swear I didn't know." I couldn't stay hidden any longer. I walked into the office. Malcolm was slumped in his chair, head in his hands, trembling. When he saw me, he rushed forward, clinging to me like the terrified 5-year-old boy I remembered. "Mom!" "Thank God. She was going to kill you. And I let her isolate us. I was such an idiot." He sobbed into my shoulder. The shame and guilt were heavier than the betrayal itself. "Shh. It's okay, baby," I whispered, stroking his hair. "She fooled everyone. She's a professional manipulator." Detective Hayes waited until the moment passed. "Malcolm, we need your help. Trista lands at 10 tomorrow morning. We are setting up a sting operation. We need you to act completely normal. You tell her I took Mia on a grandmother-granddaughter trip, and you're not sure when we'll be back. She cannot know we have the recordings." Malcolm wiped his eyes, the anger finally hardening his grief. "What do I have to do?" "Anything. Just keep Mia safe and put that monster away." "You have to be a terrible liar," I told him, remembering his weak attempts to deceive Trista on the previous call. "You have to be just convincing enough not to alert her, but bad enough that she starts fishing." "Fishing for what?" Malcolm asked, looking terrified. "She'll start looking for the money, for the alibi, for Dennis' call," Detective Hayes answered. "We need her to contact him or incriminate herself again before the arrest. You must give her room to maneuver." We spent the rest of the evening planning the sting. Malcolm was a broken man, but his love for Mia and his protective instinct for me were stronger than his devastation. Detective Hayes explained the arrest protocol. They would move in when Trista either made an explicit attempt to reach her conspirator, Dennis Call, or when she launched her next move against me or Mia. Malcolm's phone would be recording audio, transmitting everything back to the station. The final piece of preparation was the psychological warfare. I had to give Malcolm a script to use when Trista tried to charm, threaten, or manipulate him upon her return. "She will try to paint me as the villain, Malcolm," I warned. "She will say I'm unstable, that I'm trying to steal you and Mia. When she does, you have to remember the third recording, the one where she planned to blame you. That's your anchor." He nodded, his face pale and tight. "The ring box. She wanted to pin the theft on me, make me look unreliable." "Exactly. That's how you know she never loved you. She saw you as a tool, not a husband." The plan was set. Malcolm returned to the house, wired and terrified, to wait for his wife. I drove back to Ellie's, the recordings of Trista's voice playing over and over in my mind. She was coming home, not to her husband and daughter, but to the scene of a crime she had failed to commit. I looked at Mia, sleeping peacefully beside me, her small chest rising and falling. I had managed to pull her out of the fire, but tomorrow, Malcolm would have to walk straight into the flames to bring the predator down. The detective's final words echoed in my head, a warning and a command. "We need to talk about Malcolm's future, Kate. Not just his safety, but the deep internal damage she's done. This isn't just an arrest. It's a detonation." The clock read 11:15 a.m. I was in the sterile monitoring van 2 miles from the house, listening to the feed. My focus narrowed to the static and the low, muffled sounds of the microphone hidden in Malcolm's shirt. Trista's car door slammed shut. Her voice, unnervingly bright and false, cut through the quiet. "Malcolm, I'm home. Where's Mia?" Malcolm, bless his heart, managed the scripted lie, though his voice was tight. "Hey, babe. Welcome back. Mom took Mia on a little trip. Grandmother-granddaughter bonding time." The silence that followed was heavy, more aggressive than noise. Trista was calculating, processing the rupture in her perfectly laid schedule. The lack of a dead mother and a clear path to the insurance money was a profound shock to her system. A trip? What kind of trip? Her voice was already dropping its false warmth, hardening into control. "That's not acceptable, Malcolm. I need to see my daughter now. Call your mother." Malcolm stumbled, just as predicted. "She's not answering. You know Mom. When she wants to do something, she does it." The sound of her heels clicking on the hardwood floor signaled agitation. She was pacing. The predator was cornered. "This is that woman's doing," Trista declared, launching into the prepared narrative of the victimized wife. "She's trying to turn Mia against me. She's been interfering for years. What if she's having some kind of mental breakdown? She was so desperate to establish me as unstable that she didn't realize she was confirming her own guilt on the recordings." "Mom's not having a breakdown, Trista," Malcolm said, his voice straining. "How do you know, Malcolm? Our daughter is missing." She pressed him, relentless. "Where's your phone? Let me see your call history. When did you last talk to your mother?" I clenched my fists in the van. Malcolm handed over the phone. We heard the rustling of her furious, quick thumb scrolling through the screen. "This doesn't make sense," she hissed. "Your mother wouldn't just take Mia without more explanation. Something's wrong." This was the final escalation, the critical step of the microclock that signaled her breakdown in control. She went straight for her accomplice, desperate for leverage and confirmation. "I'm calling Dennis Call," she announced. "Maybe he can help us find them." "Move in," Detective Hayes ordered into the radio. "Now." 3 unmarked police cars converged on the house. The doorbell rang, followed by the pounding. Police, open the door. What the hell? Malcolm, what's going on? Why are the police here? Trista's voice was pure, raw terror. Malcolm, though weak, used the final devastating anchor. I can't, Trista. I heard the recordings. I know what you plan to do to my mother. The sound of her scream was instant, a venomous, high-pitched shriek of betrayal. You bastard! You set me up. Your mother ruined everything. She deserved to die. The officer's voice was a flat, necessary beat of procedure. Trista Barnett Williams, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, child abuse fraud, and conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. We heard the struggle, the click of the handcuffs, and Trista's final horrifying confession as she was dragged away. She was a problem, and you were too weak to see it. I did it for us. You'll regret this, Malcolm. The front door slammed, cutting off the sound. Detective Hayes turned off the recording. That's it, Kate. We have the confession. It's over. I nodded, the word over feeling utterly unreal. I drove to the house with an escort. Malcolm was sitting on the front steps, utterly destroyed. She was setting me up too, Mom, he whispered, his body shaking. She wanted to frame me with the ring box. I was just the way to get to your money. I held him, knowing that the damage was deeper than a failed murder plot. She had systematically destroyed his reality. Mia is safe with Ellie. We'll bring her home tonight, I promised him. He looked back at the house, a mausoleum of lies. I hate this house, Mom. Every room is a lie she told me. The immediate danger was gone, but the long, arduous path through court remained. Trista would use every legal loophole to fight, but we had the recordings, and we had the most credible witness, Mia. We had bought our survival with the truth, but even as the officers cleared the scene, one final calculated threat echoed from the recording, confirming Trista's intent to wage war from prison. The air was still heavy with her menace. She was right, Kate. She meant it. The air was still heavy with her menace. She was right, Kate. She meant it. The trial began 6 months later. The small courtroom was packed, the drama eclipsing anything in my 35 years of CPS work. Malcolm, Ellie, and I sat together every day. Mia's video testimony, clear, honest, and devastating, had been played on the first morning. Trista sat opposite us, perfectly composed, still playing the role of the devoted wife facing a family conspiracy. Her defense was singular and cutting. My client was driven to desperation by the victim, Kate Williams, who had been actively trying to destroy her marriage and undermine her parental authority for 7 years. The defense focused entirely on painting me as the intrusive, controlling, interfering old woman. The prosecution, led by Ms. Chavez, patiently dismantled this narrative. Dennis Call, the co-conspirator, testified first, his cheap lawyer trying desperately to minimize his involvement. He confirmed the $50,000 offer and played the chilling audio of Trista, detailing the murder plan. She said, "Once she's gone, we're free." She meant it like ordering a pizza, Call testified, squirming under Trista's icy glare. Next, the medical evidence. Dr. Mitchell, Mia's former pediatrician, testified about documenting concerns that Mia was oversedated and that Trista had abruptly switched doctors when questioned. The lab technician then confirmed the presence of a strong sedative in the pink pills. Trista took the stand. This was her final arrogant gamble. She spoke softly, her voice thick with false tears, claiming she had only wanted to protect Malcolm from my judgmental influence. "I loved my husband, and I love my daughter," Trista insisted, looking directly at the jury. Kate tried to make him choose between us. I was frantic, overwhelmed. But Ms. Chavez was ready for the scared wife narrative. She called the forensic accountant, This was the moment of the financial twist. Mr. Reynolds, can you describe the defendant's financial activity on the day of her supposed business trip? Mr. Reynolds, precise and emotionless, detailed the crime of greed that undercut her emotional defense. On the morning of October 18th, 2 hours before her flight, the defendant attempted to wire exactly $12,500 from her husband's private emergency fund into an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The courtroom gasped. The $12,500 wire, drawn from Malcolm's savings, proved she was not just planning murder. She was planning flight and abandonment. This $12,500 was an exit fund drawn from the man she claimed to love, Ms. Chavez stated, pointing at Trista. Trista's composure finally fractured. She leaned forward and whispered to her lawyer, "She knows about the other one. Stop her." Ms. Chavez hadn't finished. She then introduced the evidence of the systematic pattern of murder. "Detective Hayes, your investigation revealed a pattern of behavior consistent with financial homicide, correct?" "Yes. We found that the defendant, under her aliases, was connected to 2 previous suspicious deaths where she was the beneficiary." Hayes outlined the cases in clinical detail. Dorothy Crawford's death in the Midwest, where the defendant inherited $30,000, and Robert Chen's mother's death on the East Coast, where the defendant was the beneficiary of a $50,000 life insurance policy. The revelation of the 2 older, unsolved homicides, suddenly tied to Trista's face, was the final devastating blow. The jury didn't need any more evidence. They realized they were not judging a family dispute. They were judging a serial killer. I saw the judge's gaze harden, knowing that this pattern had just sealed her fate. But it wouldn't stop the threats. I saw the judge's gaze harden, knowing that this pattern had just sealed her fate, but it wouldn't stop the threats. The jury returned in less than 3 hours. Malcolm and I exchanged a look of strained hope. It was a speedy verdict, a sign the evidence was overwhelming. We stood as the foreman delivered the verdict. On the charge of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, we find the defendant, Trista Barnett Williams, guilty. On the charge of child abuse, we find the defendant, Trista Barnett Williams, guilty. On the charge of fraud, we find the defendant, Trista Barnett Williams, guilty. The sheer, unadulterated relief was immediately annihilated by Trista's reaction. Her mask disintegrated into a screaming, venomous fury that ripped through the silence of the courtroom. She sprang from her seat, fighting the bailiffs. "This is wrong. That old hag set me up. She turned everyone against me." She twisted toward Malcolm, her eyes blazing with pure hatred. "Malcolm, tell them I loved you." Malcolm, holding Mia's hand, Mia had insisted on being present for the closure, stood his ground, his face pale but resolute. "You were never a good mother. You drugged our daughter. You tried to have my mother murdered. You're exactly where you belong." The bailiff struggled to control her. She was thrashing, every pretense of sanity gone. "She was a problem, and you were too weak to see it," she shrieked. "I wasn't going to let her control me. I did it for us. You'll regret this, both of you, when I get out in 40 years. Malcolm's response was the most powerful thing he'd ever said. By then, Mia will be 49 years old. She won't even remember you. You'll just be a nightmare that therapy helped her overcome. As the bailiffs finally subdued her and dragged her toward the exit, she twisted her neck, fixing her gaze on me, a deep, chilling coldness returning to her eyes. Her final, chilling whisper, a promise of return, followed her out of the room like a cold draft. "You think this is over, Kate? It's never over." The judge formally handed down the sentence. 40 years in prison. Trista would be 74 when eligible for parole. The trauma of the climax gave way to the quiet victory. Malcolm pulled Mia into a desperate hug. "Is it over, Daddy?" Mia asked. Yes, baby, it's over. She can't hurt us anymore. Mia turned and hugged me tight. You saved me, Grandma. When I told you about Mommy, you believed me. The struggle was finished, but the final threat, the promise that it was never over, was the last cold seed Trista planted in our lives. We would have to carry that awareness, that constant vigilance, into our healing. We walked out of the courtroom, the trauma behind us, but the knowledge of the darkness ahead of us. A year later, the house is quiet, filled with the comfortable sound of family laughter. Malcolm sold the house. Too many bad memories, too many hidden microphones. He bought a new place, just 20 minutes from mine, closer to my simple, modest home that Trista had so despised. Mia and I see each other 3 times a week now. She is a happy kid again. The heavy sedation, the emotional abuse, the anxiety, all managed through therapy and constant, unconditional love. Malcolm is in therapy, meticulously rebuilding the foundation of his trust. He's dating again, slowly, and this time, he's learned the most important lesson. He doesn't dismiss my instincts anymore. He introduces potential partners to me early, and he listens when I have concerns. Detective Hayes and I remained close. The evidence from the trial was enough to pressure authorities in the other states. The investigations into the death of Dorothy Crawford, the $30,000 inheritance, and Robert Chen's mother, the $50,000 life insurance, were officially reopened, now classified as potential homicides. Trista will likely face additional murder charges, guaranteeing she will never walk free. Today is Mia's 10th birthday. We're celebrating in my modest living room, the room Trista thought was beneath her. The house she never realized was the most dangerous place for her. Later, after the guests have left, Mia sits beside me on the couch. Grandma, can I ask you something? Anything, baby. Why did you believe me? She whispered. When I told you about Mommy, adults never believe kids. But you did. Right away. I pulled her close. I believed you because of my job, baby. For 35 years, I worked with children in danger, and I learned the most important thing. Children almost never lie about being afraid or being hurt. I also believed you because I know you, Mia. You are a smart, honest, brave girl. When you told me you were scared and that you'd heard something dangerous, I knew you were telling the truth, and I knew I had to protect you. Malcolm sits beside us, putting his arm around Mia. She did save us, both of us, he said, looking at me with love and gratitude. We saved each other, I corrected. Mia was brave enough to tell me what she heard. I was experienced enough to believe her and act on it. And Malcolm, you were strong enough to face the truth, even when it destroyed your marriage. Malcolm shook his head. She made me feel like you were the problem, like I needed to choose my wife over my mother. I let her isolate us. You didn't know what she was. You see it now. You'll never miss those signs again, and that's what matters. Mia snuggled between us. I'm glad we're all safe now. I'm glad the bad lady is gone forever. We sit together, the 3 of us surrounded by safety, love, and the strength of the truth. Trista had tried to destroy the bond between grandmother, son, and granddaughter. She failed. When Mia whispered those terrifying words, Grandma, please don't go back home. I heard Mom planning something against us, believe me. I chose to trust her. That immediate unconditional trust, a grandmother's love backed by 3 decades of CPS experience, saved our lives. That is the legacy I'm leaving Mia. Not money or status, but the knowledge that she is loved, she is believed, and she is safe. She'll know that family, real family, means believing each other, protecting each other, and choosing each other. That knowledge is worth more than anything Trista ever valued. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you are here.